Griff, ICE has been doxxed, and we know that, and we've seen that in LA. Pictures put up, careful with these faces, with their phone numbers, and now they can't hide their identities.
It's unbelievable, Kaylee. In fact, I talked to senior ICE leadership. They're very concerned that there is actually a group that has a database online encouraging people in the public, protesters, whoever, to identify agents.
Criminals or illegals, and they don't give a damn about law enforcement or their citizens. More stupidity from the left. I'm sorry, I ain't trying to be mean, but that's the only way I can categorize it.
This, California Democrats have unveiled a new bill that threatens to dox ICE agents and cops who wear face masks while conducting arrests. And now Republicans argue California has zero authority to regulate what federal law enforcement can and cannot do.
Good.
The bill, if passed into law, would strip law enforcement of their right to wear face masks while conducting operations in the field. Here's one of the bill's sponsors.
Law enforcement officers serve the community. They're not separate from the community. They serve the community. And when if you start having a system where law enforcement officers are like, moving towards like stormtroopers in Star Wars, where when I was a kid, I remember thinking that, stormtroopers were all robots. They're not. They're people who wore, just covered everything up. We don't want to move towards that kind of model where law enforcement becomes almost like an occupying army disconnected from the community.
These people right here, look at this dude. Probably never had a physical confrontation ever in his life. Hands soft as tissue paper. People that live in a world like that where they've never dealt with conflict, they create goofy laws. It's like that whole mantra, the thing that's went around, like what it say, tough times create tough men create soft times create soft men, soft times create soft men. I think I got it right. But people who want to create laws like this without examining all the facts behind these officers going into these areas and attempting to police properly, they're dangerous and they shouldn't be in power. And this is one reason why California is the train wreck state that it is.
And that's what it is when you start hiding their face, hiding the identity. Boy, it's a totally different society that we're going to be living in if we get to the point where it is considered acceptable for law enforcement officers to be anonymous.
What about living in a society where if a law enforcement officer isn't anonymous, especially if you're an ICE agent or working for Border Patrol or anything like that, where your information is being spread, you're being doxxed, all your information is being put on the internet, and you're having people come by your home, threatening you, threatening your kids, threatening your family. Is that cool? I really hope somebody pushed back against this foolishness. I'm telling you, these people are insane.
That is not okay.
Yeah, you just heard him call our law enforcement stormtroopers and occupying army forces. Wow, someone called them heroes for protecting us. Well, interestingly, this comes after what we've been seeing in nationwide protests. Take a look at these pictures. You see some violent activity going on, and these same Democrats who won't condemn the masked protesters, the people perpetrating the violence, the riots and the vandalizing of private property in big cities, now they want to stop ICE from protecting themselves. But
yeah, why not make it illegal for protesters to wear masks? Why don't you do that? But they're not going to do that. Those Democrats ain't going to do any of that.
That will not stop President Trump, who ordered ICE to expand efforts to detain and deport illegal immigrants in these Democrat-run cities. Emily, it's a total and complete inversion of let's go after the criminals in California. Instead, let's go after ICE and expose their identities to everyone.
And I want to add a bit of background on who exactly this state senator is, because we've covered a lot of his proposed legislation here on the couch, because it represents such the tiniest minority of actual thinking. So he was the one that was responsible for the bill criminalizing if you used the wrong pronoun for someone in an elderly nursing home. He was also the one responsible for introducing a bill that would decriminalize the intentional transmission of HIV during sexual intercourse, because he said that that improperly maligned the homosexual community.
I'm pretty sure he's one of the alphabet. He's a member of the alphabet community. I'd probably be willing to put some money behind that. And I'm not even a betting man.
And now he says that for people to be able to trust law enforcement, they have to have name tags while they're in the course of their duties. I find this aberrant, absolutely ridiculous. And yet again, another example of that radical academia where he has the luxury of typing up these thoughts from the safety of his computer in his office and then goes back home, while the rest of us who lived in those communities in San Francisco and California were begging for law enforcement to be supported, invested in, and respected so they could do their job safely at the hands of the state, because indeed they are part of the community. They don't just serve, sir, they are part of it. And having just returned from a Holocaust trip with Molly to Poland, I find it especially absolutely unacceptable that he uses the phrase secret police to describe law enforcement.
Now, I don't have an issue in normal circumstances for law enforcement for it to be mandatory for law enforcement officers to identify themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. But in this situation where you have rioting going on all over the country, where you have, as I mentioned earlier, people being doxxed, their information being put out on the internet, you're dealing with a totally different world. Totally different world. But again, folks like this, they can't comprehend that.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned academia and real life. Let's bring in someone who is part of real life, actually on the ground. I talked to Tom Homan last night. This is what he said ICE is going through.
Agents are used to being attacked. I mean, it's a strange world where those who enforce law are the bad guys and those who break the law are the good guys. But yeah, they're getting doxxed. I'm getting doxxed. My family gets doxxed. They get doxxed. But here's every attack on an ICE officer. When you attack an ICE officer, you're attacking 20,000 of them because the camaraderie in ICE is tight. So when they double down, we triple down. So men and women at ICE are going to keep standing up. They're going to keep doing the job. They're working for the greatest president in my lifetime.
Griff, ICE has been doxxed, and we know that, and we've seen that in LA. Pictures put up, careful with these faces, with their phone numbers, and now they can't hide their identities.
It's unbelievable, Kaylee. In fact, I talked to senior ICE leadership. They're very concerned that there is actually a group that has a database online encouraging people in the public, protesters, whoever, to identify agents and put it online publicly. And these ICE leaders have to worry about their agents. Can you imagine being the spouse or a child of an ICE officer worried that mom and dad may get injured or killed out there? The assaults on ICE agents is up over 400%. And, this is another confirmation that, at least in the case of California Democrats, they're choosing the side of illegal criminal aliens because ICE is going into these communities and enforcing federal immigration law by removing people, many of whom have horrific criminal records from homicide to sexual assault. At the end of the day, this is very concerning for ICE right now. And the last time I checked, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think states have the authority to regulate what federal law enforcement is wearing.
Total insanity. And it honestly made me think of this right here, y'all. Let me share this. After hearing what Tom Homan had said about how crazy it is that we're living in a time where the criminals are being celebrated and protected, and the good guys, the cops who are trying to enforce laws, the laws of our land, are being villainized. I couldn't help but think of Isaiah 5:20 and 21. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and shrewd in their own sight. I don't think it could have been put any better than that.
And we have seen these posters that Griff speaks of. We'll put one up. Careful with these faces. Some of these posters actually say they kidnap people. So imagine if that's your dad, his face accusing him of being a kidnapper.
Yeah, and they're not public figures. So you can make, I think, a defamation argument here. You can go after people who defame our ICE agents and endanger them. I would think legally you could do that. Look, for perspective here, House Speaker Mike Johnson was asked recently about this, and he said, just remember the politics being played here. Democrats who want ICE agents unmasked are the same people who mandated mask wearing for years during COVID. I mean, just the hypocrisy there. And much of that mask wearing, we learned the cloth, so on and so forth, was not even medically proven to be helpful. But when you look at this, Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats in the House, wants these people unmasked in this current political environment so that they'll know who they are. Who are we talking about right now? These are the protectors of the American public. You want them to be targeted? Is he going to take responsibility, by the way, Hakeem Jeffries, as the leader of Democrats in the House, if something happens to one of these ICE agents and it was perhaps because you instigated people to want to know more about them and their livelihoods and their home and their family? Is he going to take responsibility? Are you, Hakeem Jeffries? It seems particularly irresponsible and dangerous.
Absolutely.
But we all know he wouldn't. I really hope that justice comes to these idiots. I'm talking about here on earth. I just want to see it. I really hope that these people get their just due, that whatever organizations that are funding these rioters, I hope they get found out and real legit charges get put on them. But I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. But before you go, check out this video right here. I think you'll appreciate it.